Hello, everyone. I am Storyteller. Thank you for visiting this peaceful place. I know you are looking for something soothing to help you fall asleep, and I am here to accompany you. If you enjoy, please give me a like and subscribe, and let me know where you are from. Thank you. Blackwood's Yew Farm. Jenna wiped sweat from her forehead and surveyed the cluttered living room. Boxes labeled kitchen, bedroom, studio equipment were scattered around. The high ceilings and dusty crown molding had a haunting charm, perfect for her next YouTube series. "All right, guys," Jenna said, adjusting her camera. "Welcome to Blackwood's Yew Farm, a place so haunted it's been empty for years. But you know me, here to bust some myths and find the truth." Jenna panned the camera around, capturing B-roll footage. "The plan is to document everything," she said, moving through the hallway. "We'll explore every nook and cranny. And if the ghosts won't come, we'll have to encourage them." Her viewers loved a good scare, even if it meant a bit of staging. Jenna was used to setting up convincing shots to keep her audience on edge. "This place is beautiful," Jenna said. "It's hard to believe nobody's lived here for years." She paused, her look a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Jenna set her camera on the porch handrail. The evening light cast shadows across the wood as she zoomed in on the plaque reading Blackwood's Yew Farm. "Look at this," she said. "What's up with the weird capital letters?" She stepped back, ensuring the whole plaque was in the frame. "It's not just fancy font." She paused, letting the camera linger on the name. Jenna glanced around, noting the rocking chair and ivy framing the windows. A creak from behind made her jump. Spinning around, she saw nothing. Nervously, she turned back to the camera. "Well, that's creepy," she said. "This place certainly has atmosphere." She turned off the camera and walked into the house, footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. She set the camera on a tripod, framing the grand foyer behind her, and turned it back on. "All right, everyone," Jenna says. "Let's take a deeper look into Blackwood's Yew Farm." She panned the camera across the entryway, showing the chandelier, dusty portraits, and wide staircase. "Check out this staircase," she says, brushing the polished wood. Straight out of a Gothic novel. Jenna moved into the living room, aiming the camera at the fireplace. This fireplace must have seen countless winter nights. She walked in front of the camera and looked directly into it. Turns out, Blackwood's Yew Farm has a history. People say it's haunted, but you know me. I'm here to bust those myths. A soft creak echoed through the house, making Jenna's heart skip a beat. Perfect setting for our adventure, right? Jenna reached for her notebook. Built in early 1929 by John Blackwood. After the Blackwood family's mysterious disappearance, the house changed hands a few times, each owner left under strange circumstances. It's been empty for 20 years. Closing the book, she whispered, "Bad luck? Or something sinister?" She moved the tripod to the hallway in front of the basement door. She opened the door to the basement and pretended to peer down. "I'll save the basement for another day," Jenna says with a nervous laugh. Heading upstairs, Jenna showed the master bedroom with its large 4-poster bed and faded wallpaper. "This must have been beautiful in its day," she says. "I can't wait to fix it up. And the first thing to go is that ugly wallpaper." Finally, she climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. She pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside, her flashlight revealing stacks of old boxes and furniture. She panned the camera over the piles of furniture and forgotten relics covered in dust. "Looks like I've got my work cut out for me," she says, stepping carefully around the clutter. "But who knows? Maybe we'll find something interesting." Jenna approached a large wooden trunk in the corner, its surface scratched and worn. She knelt and slowly lifted the lid. Inside were old clothes, yellowed letters, and a leather-bound diary. She picked up the diary to show the camera. "Jackpot," Jenna said, eyes wide with excitement. She opened the diary, flipping through the brittle pages. "Margaret Blackwood, 1929, Jenna read aloud. "This could give us some insight into the history of the farm." She glanced at the camera. "I promise I'll read some of this later for you guys." She tucked the diary under her arm and continued exploring the attic, her camera capturing every dusty corner. "This place is like a time capsule," Jenna said. "All right, I think that's enough for today." She turned the camera back on herself. "I've got a lot of work to do up here. Stay tuned for more updates from Blackwood's Yew Farm." Jenna sat on her bed, the diary in her lap. She opened it, finding mundane entries about the house's construction and moving in. But as she read on, the tone shifted. "November 15th, 1929, Jenna read. "Strange noises last night. Sounded like whispers. Couldn't sleep. December 2nd, 1929, Jenna read. "The whispers are getting louder. John thinks I'm imagining things." The next entry caught her eye, the handwriting shakier. "December 14th, 1929, she whispered. "Woke up to find all the doors open. John is missing. We're not alone. The children are terrified." Jenna's hands trembled as she turned the page. The final entry was short. The ink smudged. "December 15th, 1929, Jenna read. "Last night was the worst yet. Shadows in the darkness, cold hands on my skin. We must leave. If I could undo the wish that I made to get John to build it." The diary ended abruptly. Jenna closed the book, her mind racing. She had come to debunk myths, but now she wondered if she had taken on too much. She turned off the lamp and lay back on the bed. The house's creaks and moans amplified in the silence. Jenna pulled the covers up to her chin, her eyes wide as she stared into the darkness, unable to shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. Jenna stirred in her sleep as faint, eerie sounds creeping into her dreams. A low, rhythmic tapping echoed through the house. She woke with a start, heart pounding, sweat dripping from her forehead. Jenna reached for her camera and flashlight instinctively, her pulse racing. "What the?" she whispered to herself, trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. The tapping continued, louder and more insistent. "Okay, guys," Jenna said. Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to sound composed. 3 o'clock. Some noises woke me out of bed. The floorboards creaked beneath her weight. The tapping echoed through the halls, setting her nerves on edge. "I'm going to check it out," Jenna said. "Wish me luck." She crept down the hallway, her flashlight illuminating the dust, motes floating in the air. The sound came from the attic. "Here goes nothing," Jenna muttered, placing a hand on the railing. Each step groaned under her weight. The attic door loomed before her, pushing it slowly, the hinges squealing in protest. The noise came from the far corner, behind a pile of debris. Jenna navigated the clutter, her camera held high. "This is creepy." As Jenna approached, the noise suddenly stopped. Scanning the area with her flashlight revealed nothing but cobwebs. "Nothing here," Jenna said, trembling. She lowered the camera, her breath coming in short gasps. The tapping didn't resume, the silence more unsettling than the noise. "Maybe it's just the house settling," Jenna said, more to herself. A cold breeze brushed past her, ruffling her hair and sending a shiver through her body. "Okay, that's enough for tonight," Jenna said shakily. Back to bed. At the bottom of the stairs, she glanced back up, half expecting to see someone staring at her. But there was nothing. Jenna set the camera down on her nightstand. She climbed back into bed, her mind racing. The house was old, full of noises, but this felt different. She tried to reassure herself, but the unease lingered. Jenna, eyes heavy with sleep, heard it again. Closer this time, different. A soft, dragging noise, like something being pulled across the floor. She sat up quickly, heart pounding, reaching for her camera. "Guys, it's happening again," Jenna said, pressing the record button. "It's around 4 o'clock in the morning." She swung the flashlight around, sweeping it across the room. She gasped as she noticed the old rocking chair in the corner, gently moving back and forth. She swallowed hard, the thrill of capturing something tangible. She quickly looked under the bed. "Nothing here," she said. But that chair moving, that was real. The noise returned from the hallway. She tiptoed to the door, every muscle tense as she turned the knob. The door swung open with a creak, revealing the dark corridor beyond. She aimed the flashlight down the corridor, the light struggling against the darkness. She crept to the staircase, her mind racing with explanations, each more unsettling than the last. As she reached the stairs, she paused, the sound now coming from below. "Here we go," she whispered, starting down the stairs. The main floor was cloaked in moving shadows as the flashlight washed over the furniture. "This is where it gets good," Jenna thought, her fear surely coming across as genuine to her viewers. This is exactly what they want to see. She followed the noise to the kitchen, where the old cast iron stove stood against the far wall. Jenna hesitated, her hand hovering over the stove's door handle. Jenna flung the door of the stove open. Inside, she found nothing but old ashes and cobwebs. The noise stopped abruptly. She turned the camera back on herself, trying to mask her relief with disappointment. "Well, that was anticlimactic," Jenna said. Jenna's mind churned. She couldn't debunk these sounds, and that worried her. There was no logical explanation, no draft or loose floorboard to blame. She headed back upstairs, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She'd pretended to have this experience so many times before on camera, and now was sickened by the fear. The next day, she decided to explore the basement, the part of the house she hadn't investigated. Clutching her camera, she silently slipped down the stairs. "All right, guys, heading to the basement," Jenna said. "Let's see if we can find these noises." Jenna jiggled the handrail along the steps. It wobbled slightly, but no noise came. The basement was a large, shadow-filled space, cluttered with old furniture and dust-caked boxes. The air was musty, carrying the scent of mildew. "This looks promising," Jenna said, aiming the camera at an old wooden door, its paint peeling. Pushing it open revealed a small room filled with old boxes and more debris. Stepping inside, her flashlight barely cut the darkness. The room, cold and stagnant, was disappointingly mostly empty. "Well," Jenna said, shakier than she intended as she panned the camera to the clutter. Her flashlight cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Let's see if we can find more clues." She pulled an old photo album from a box and flipped it open, revealing black and white images of the Blackwoods family, their sad eyes staring back at her. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the far corner where the shadows seemed darker and more menacing, making Jenna jump. "What the?" Jenna said, spinning around. She moved towards the door. Her breath came out in visible puffs as the temperature dropped sharply. She could see frost forming on the walls. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest, her fear mounting. Then she saw it. A large, dark figure standing just beyond the reach of her flashlight. It was tall, but obscured by the shadows. Jenna froze, unable to tear her eyes away. "Who are you?" The figure didn't respond. Jenna took a step back and turned to run, the door slamming shut. With a crash, Jenna tried the doorknob in vain. The figure began to move towards her. "You wanted ghosts," his voice hissed, "but instead you got demons. Be careful what you wish for." "Please, Her voice broke. "Let me go." The figure laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the basement. "You wanted the truth," it said, "and now you have it." Jenna's blood ran cold. She stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. It was almost upon her, shifting and twisting in the dim light. She fumbled for her camera, wanting her viewers to see. As soon as the camera focused on him, it disappeared, leaving only an eerie shriek in the wake. Heart pounding in her chest, she fumbled with the doorknob, opening easily. Jenna bolted out, still recording as she fled up the stairs. Jenna's breath came in gaps as she stumbled out. She slammed the basement door and gathering her thoughts. The figure's laugh still echoed in her ears as its glowing eyes burned into her soul. "God, help me," Jenna whispered. She scrolled through her phone, her fingers barely able to press the buttons. She found the number she was looking for. "Hello? Maggie," Jenna said, frantic. "It's Jenna. I need your help." "What's wrong?" Maggie asked. "This house is possessed," Jenna cried. "I need a priest. Now!" There was silence for a moment. "Seriously?" "Yes, Maggie, seriously." "Okay," Maggie said. "I know someone, Father Michael. He does exorcisms. I'll call him and send him to you." "Thank you," Jenna said, her voice breaking. "Hang in there, Jenna. He'll be there soon." Jenna hung up, sinking to the floor, her back against the front door. She tried to steady her breathing, but the fear clung to her. She waited, every odd creak making her jump. It felt like hours. But finally, there was a knock at the door. Jenna opened it to find a middle-aged man in a black shirt and white collar. He held a small, worn leather case. "Father Michael?" Jenna asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," he replied. "Maggie said you needed help." "Yeah," Jenna said, closing the door behind him. "Tell me everything," Jenna explained, her voice trembling. Father Michael listened intently. "Exorcisms aren't to be taken lightly. They can be dangerous," he said. "I can't live here knowing that things here." Father Michael nodded. "Let's begin the ritual." Jenna swallowed and nodded. He opened his leather case, revealing a crucifix, holy water, and a worn prayer book. He handed Jenna the vial of holy water. "Keep this with you," he instructed, "for protection." Jenna nodded, taking the vial with shaky hands as they descended the steps. "Et ne nos induca in tentationem." The airworm in the temptation. Basement changed as the priest started chanting, the Latin words echoing off the cold, damp walls. Jenna clung to the holy water he had given her. "Sed libera nos a malo." The temperature dropped as cold swept through the basement. Jenna shivered, feeling the icy breath of the unseen entity. The shadows grew darker. A deafening roar erupted, shaking the walls as dust and debris rained down. A force slammed into them, sending them sprawling. The air crackled with energy. "Sancte Michael Arcangele," the priest gasped. "Defende nos in proelio." The air pressed in, then released outwards as the house exploded. Coming to, Jenna found herself on the cold basement floor. She groaned, every muscle aching. The priest lay a few feet away, stirring. Jenna looked around in shock. The house was gone, debris scattered in all directions. They were in the center of what had been the basement, now a barren slab exposed to the sky. As she stood, her gaze fell on words in the concrete. Squinting, she moved closer. They knelt to examine an inscription deeply carved into the concrete. "It's an explanation," the priest said. "This slab of concrete, it's covering the pit of the abyss of Satan and the other fallen angels." The priest leaned in, squinting at the foreign language beneath, the English inscription. "This is ancient Hebrew," he says. "It's the seal of God that keeps the fallen angels from being released." "Look," Jenna said, pointing at the center of the seal. "It's cracking." A small crack appeared in the center, widening slowly. The priest's face turned ashen as it grew like a spider web, expanding, jagged lines splintering outward, accompanied by guttural groans. The ground shuddered, throwing them off balance. "We have to get out of here!" the priest shouted. "Now!" The concrete buckled as the crack grew wider. They stumbled backward, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Putrid, sulfuric stench wafted up from the cracks. Jenna's eyes filled with tears as she clung to the priest. "What have we done?" the priest shouted. "It's going to break open any second. Hell's about to be released. Literally." She looked up at the hole's edge, now seemingly miles above them, the walls steep and crumbling. "Over here," the priest said. He pointed to a section where the ground seemed more stable, a narrow ledge that might offer a chance to climb. Jenna nodded, and they made their way towards it. Each step a battle against the shifting earth. Jenna slipped, but she clawed at the wall with her free hand, finally pulling herself back onto the ledge. Safely out of the hole, Jenna's eyes drifted over the debris, landing on the house plaque. All she could read was B, C, Y, as most of the letters were covered in soot and grime. "Oh my God," Jenna said, trembling. It was a warning. "Be careful what you wish for." She saw her and the priest's vehicles still intact. She scrambled to her feet, pulling the priest up. They stumbled across the debris. She fumbled with her keys, finally sliding the key into the door. She slid into the seat, but before shutting the door, she felt a coldness touch her leg. Jenna, frozen with fear, felt the ice worm up her leg and into her belly, paralyzing her. It spread through her body, mind, and soul. Jenna watched the priest's car fishtail out of the driveway. A slow smile crept across her face. Only a matter of time now. Her voice no longer recognizable. Diary of a Serial Killer. How might one endure the silent and secluded nature of winter? Be the bear. Enter a deep cave. And dream, dream, dream. Jacqueline Suskin. I probably shouldn't be writing this, but oh fucking well. When the most precious thing lodged in your heart is ripped out and crushed by an unthinking alcoholic asshole driving with a revoked license, you do things, unimaginable things, and not just burying your beloved 8-year-old son, which was not on my shitty life bingo card, obvs, but life wasn't shitty before. The word should be capitalized. Before. No, better yet, the before, because now life was rent in two, forever separated by the gaping maw of rage. The before and the after, a fissure of overwhelming grief that quickly cracked, allowing the steaming, boiling lava to emerge from her core. Oh, he would pay. That drunken dickhead. His money won't protect him. Not from me. They gave her the code name Mama Bear. But he never imagined that she was holed up in a cave. On a hunch, he came out to the Pennsylvania woods at night. Alone. Common sense and the FBI handbook would label his actions reckless at best and suicidal at worst. But he didn't fear for his safety. Mama Bear targeted a certain type of prey. Except for being a male, he didn't fit her profile. Funny. They were both profilers. October snuck up behind him, picking up the crisp air, tossing it around. Playing offense, it switched tactics, threw it toward his face, temporarily snatching his breath. He continued to climb, quiet, crunching under his boots, allowing the patches of clearing and the light of the frosted full moon to guide his steps. He'd reach the cave no matter what, so the easy way was the best way. He put his hand in his front pocket, felt the crumpled page of a diary. The paper crinkled like the fallen leaves underfoot. It was mailed to him at his office. This one, and the other entries. He had the sense to turn in the others, but not this one. Well, most of the others. She vowed to herself that she would abstain from killing for a month. Or so she wrote. By his accounts, it was day 30. He hoped her undated entry referred to October. At least he would have a day, one day. It was easier than I thought. I would say too easy. But that motherfucker mowed down my baby like a shirtless, beer-bellied jickoff hurrying to cut the grass before the Buccos game. Maybe it shouldn't be hard. Justice shouldn't be hard. Not in the semblance of a fair world. Leaves skittered and scurried around his legs, tumbling over each other like playing squirrels. He stopped, inhaled deeply. He loved the smell of fall. That last exhale of trees mixing with ripe decomposition. I'm so glad I live in a world of Octobers. He smiled at the memory of his sister, quoting Anne Shirley. Not so long ago, his smile fell. Not so long ago yet, forever ago. Tragedy has a way of altering time, elongating some parts and compressing others. He looked up through the lattice of bare limbs, a web of gnarled fingers, the indigo sky stitched with rhinestones. Did the stars foretell it? It was the mutable signs of the zodiac: Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, BTK, Dahmer, Bundy, the ones born at the end of a season, not in the middle, like the fixed signs, like Scorpio, like her. You'd think one was enough, but it wasn't. I realized AA, alcoholic asshole, was just one of many. Sure, I settled my score, but what of the other moms? So many blights, diseases walking the earth, infecting others with their cruelty, their carelessness, their capriciousness. Someone had to bring order, just like Melville Dewey did to book classification. Sown to 99, he considered turning around to walk back down the hill. He turned, but didn't move. In the distance, the twinkling lights of downtown Pittsburgh weaved a terrestrial constellation of bridges, one-way traffic, and sundry skyscrapers. The Steel City, just like its people. Metal backbones, gritty guts, and honest hearts. He craved a sandwich from Primanti's. Any sandwich. That was the last time he saw her. At Primanti's, the original one. He wasn't one to second-guess himself. His mom drummed it into their heads from the cradle. Trust self first, last and only. First, last, only. Thanks to the internet and social media, it's not hard to find someone or their misdeeds. What was once relegated to a diary like this is now vomited onto Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for all to see. Many lap it up, probably because it makes them feel less uncomfortable about their own stupid decisions and meaningless lives. Here for the mindless braggart. Many blowhards make for less research when it comes to this side gig. He cracked his neck, onward and upward, one foot in front of the other. Crunching leaves, whipping wind, snapping twigs. Up, up, up he climbed. He was getting close. His hand reached towards his front pocket. Again, he read the page dozens of times, just like the rest. He couldn't help it. Just touching the decal-edged diary page brought clarity and understanding. He had to find her first. Could it be that easy? I think this might be my last entry. I knew it was a bad idea. No, make that bad idea to write things down. But writers write. Fish swim, birds fly, dogs bark. Writers write. And mama bears? Well, unless you're bent from birth, looking at you, mutable signs, no one sets out to be a killer. Or, as I like to differentiate, a remover. Scrooge, Dickens, had it partly right. Decrease the surplus population. He just needed to add of assholes. Decrease the surplus population of assholes. Dangerous, foul, hollow assholes. He neared the ridge. He was getting close. He pulled out the wrinkled diary page. He couldn't help it. The moon illuminated the page, but he couldn't make out the words. Strange glyphs, occultic squiggles, just like those found on the astrological charts she used to interpret. Meaningless symbols to the untrained eye, but metaphysical gold to the mystic. He didn't need to be able to read the entry. He had it memorized, the cave. He could see the entrance, dark, yawning, an inky maw, just like her rage. He reached into the other pocket for his flashlight. She beat him to it. Her flashlight shone on the ground ahead, so as not to blind him. "Hey, sis. Hey, bro. What took you so long? All for science. It's a jungle out here. I'd been warned. Predators and prey of every size and description around every corner. Anywhere can be breathtakingly beautiful and equally breathtakingly deadly. Stay alert to stay alive. Even with safeguards in place, I find myself in terrifying peril. Time's running out. The end is near. I fear no help is in the offering. I am on my own. No hope left. It's getting more and more difficult to breathe. Humidity so thick, it's like sucking a wet sponge. But I can't give up. Yet. I see my short life flashing before me. Might pass out soon. How can this be happening? Won a grant to study rainforest in Amazon, all for science. Far back as I can, remember I had a love for plants, instilled by my mother. Rest her soul. She raised exotic plants. So I wanted to emulate her, made it into a great university. Oh, that hurt. Can't think straight. Getting lightheaded. Most of my history will be found in my journals. When did I last make an entry? Right. When I arrived. Was going to add more tonight. Oh, well, best laid plans. He has me pinned right where he wants me, trembling in fear. Grip tightens. Oh, hope Adam knows I really did love him. Wanted to be his wife. But so ironic when I think about it now. How we were saving ourselves for marriage. Mutually agreed. The right thing to do with our bodies. Not give in to temptation and all that. Yeah, we made it to some bases. But overall, still a virgin. At 23, could have gotten married long ago. But we wanted our master degrees first. I tried to scream at first. Takes too much breath. Now, look at my body. I tried so hard. Stay in shape. Stay healthy. Exercise. Eat right. There'll be nothing left. A pith helmet and designer cargo pants, if that. Ow. Think that was a rib. That cracked. Snap, crackle, pop. If lung punctured, maybe put me out of misery sooner. Yes, I should pray for that. Make this end, please. Oh, hurts so much. Get it over with. Already. Must confess all my sins and beg forgiveness. Please forgive me for not serving you and my fellow man better. Thank you for saving grace. Remember me in your kingdom, please. So crook, ating. Think pleasant thoughts. Night first met Adam. Halloween party, college, junior year. Friend convinced me wear outlandish costume. A pleathery sleeping bag looking wrap that looked like a giant anaconda swallowing me whole. Ironic, right? Lower jaw pushed up my D-cup cleavage to my neck. Only my arms and head stuck out. Above the form-hugging, diamond-studded snakeskin created quite the shapely bulge 40 and 26-36. The upper jaw looked like a hoodie coming over my head. Adam and every other straight male took notice, but Adam's field of study is snakes. They're his passion. More so than me, I fear. He seemed jealous of my trip here. I only look at plants. He would have so many snakes to admire snakes. Believe. He would classify this charmer as a reticulated python. He has me wrapped in multiple coils, intending to make me his meal. I'm afraid, enjoying squeezing every last breath out of me until I pass out or die, making me easier to devour whole without a struggle. More bones he can break will make me slide down so much easier. It won't be long now, being crushed like a tin can. Everything hurts, breaths getting shallower, all alone on a hike, not far from camp. Stopped to examine flora. He dropped out of canopy above. Even if I looked up, he would resemble dripping vines. Was he stalking me, or I happened to stumble into his domain? Easy prey, fast delivery, knife strapped to my thigh. Once he had me. In his grip, he moved so fast, I didn't stand a chance. Maybe butt dial help? Phone in my back pocket. Reached for it. Now, arms pinned behind me. Chest thrust out between coils. Pretty picture, no doubt. Oh. Try not to imagine the coming horror. Maws above me, already drooling, smells putrid. I can hear his forked tongue testing, tapping my pith helmet. It deflects saliva away from my face for now. It's strapped on. If he tries to dislodge it, my head may be ripped off too. Less misery for me. Please let this end. With each exhale, he takes up the space, crushing me more, making impossible to get air. Oh, the pain. Agonizing pain. Adam once told me. This guy is one of most efficient killers in world. Only the best. For me. Oh, don't laugh. Takes too much breath. He's getting more efficient. Once I pass out, he'll easily swallow me whole. Connective tissue allows jaws to open wide. He'll walk them over my head and face. Hope he chokes on helmet. Backward pointing fangs prevent me from escaping if I'm still alive. Sure, as if once prey in throat. Strong muscular contractions work mass down through long esophagus into juicy, thick stomach, all prepared for heavy task of digestion. May slow him down several days. My body quivering in terror. Carnivorous, 100%. No flora for him. Can swallow prey much larger, thicker than himself. He'll bathe it in lots of slimy, acidic juices and digest everything except hair and nails, things with keratin. Those will be expelled as pellets. Wonder about cargo pants and hiking boots. Someone someday find pile of designer scat? I'm such a comedian sometimes. Maybe I'll taste funny, so he'll spit me out. Don't wanna be snake food. Oh. Scaldor. Is someone over there? Behind those ferns? Help me. Help me, please. Fading fast. Out of time. Hello, Eve, my love. Imagine finding you here, hanging out with a serpent. You're turning a bit purple. Oh, Adam. Thank goodness. Save me. Can't breathe. He's breaking every bone. The pain is unbearable. Destroy this monster. Let me beat him with this stick. Let go of her, you horrible purple people eater. Sorry, not working, doll. Can't say I didn't try. Besides, how could I possibly forgive myself for destroying such a magnificent specimen? He's only doing what comes naturally. You look like a piece of meat to him. Can't blame him. He's made a delectable selection. Just look at the way he is working you over. Kind of like the way you twisted everything around in your journal I found back home when I was watering your plants. You were ready to dump me after all our dreams and plans, simply because I gave in to temptation and bedded that perky waitress. She didn't deny me any of her body, unlike you. Oh, can't touch this. Now who is touching you everywhere? And you expect me to save you? Adam, please, can't last much longer. The end is near. Tell you what, sweetheart. How about I make you a movie star? You look hotter than I have ever seen you, all coiled up, cozy-like, with that hungry python. Your boobs are sticking out between the coils and look good enough to eat. Oh, that is his plan, all right. Such a tasty morsel for him. I'm gonna film it all in the name of research. The eating and mating habits of the reticulated python. My favorite subject. It will pay for this nice little vacation I granted myself. But he'll get a good portion of that too. Let me help him out by taking off that ridiculous hat and those heavy boots. Maybe I can slip off those long pants as you are slipping down the hatch. Don't want to be too hard on his delicate system. Hard enough swallowing a prickly prude. Smile pretty for the camera. Look like you are enjoying this once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's all for science. There you go now. You'll make a sexy, shapely bulge in his belly, my dear. You'll stay alive for a few hours. Be sure to thrash around in all the sweet, smelling bile. He'll like that. Gives him satisfaction. And it'll speed up the digestion, so the burning won't last as long. I did mention it's gonna burn a bit, didn't I? Have fun. The end of Eve as we knew her. Epilogue. Adam. I'm funning with you folks. Of course. I waited a couple of hours, then showed up at her camp where they were missing poor Eve. I led a search party, and we happened upon this large, long, legless lizard, lounging languidly along a sunny ledge with a bulging bauble about the belly. In the name of science, we opened it up and found a slime-covered beet red, boiling mad, but still beautiful, busty, blonde botanist. She never would marry me, but she made a fortune telling her tale of what it felt like to be swallowed whole. And my secret porn video went viral. All for science, you understand. General. My eyes fly open, like I'm waking from the dead. I start up, tossing aside the blanket that had been tangled around my legs. Something woke me up. I kick dirty laundry out of the way and shift my body to sitting up, head swimming. The sunlight is too bright in the room, and I find myself squinting around. When I lean forward, my phone tumbles off my lap, hits the edge of the coffee table, and clatters to the floor. I wince. Shh! I hiss at it. Why is that so loud? It echoes through the whole house. I look down at the dark phone, way far away on the floor, and can't convince my arms to swing down to grab it. What's the point? So I can open it up and do what? I breathe in, smelling the stale smell of the old blankets wrapped around me in a cocoon. And because there's nothing better to do, breathe out again. I can feel stiffness in my stomach from the surgery, the stitches stretching with my skin. I'm hungry. I should haul myself to my feet, drag myself into the kitchen, and find something to eat. I try to imagine doing all of that, standing up, moving, opening the fridge, getting out ingredients, putting things in a bowl. I swing my head to the right. There's my water bottle. I can drink some water. I try to force my brain to imagine telling my husband, when he gets home from work, what I did today. I drank some water from my water bottle. I breathed in, and I breathed back out. I decided to keep breathing in and keep breathing out, because it was easier than not doing that. I look down at my right arm, and because it would be embarrassing if I can't even manage that, I lift my arm, pick up my water bottle with fingers made of lead, and swallow some water. I have been back from the hospital almost a week after my ordeal, and somehow swallowing water is still the most I can manage. The TV is on, and there's a very serious news lady droning on. She's talking about the spread of the virus, and there's a map with splotches of red. I don't want to listen to this, to see the red slowly seeping into our state, getting closer and closer to us. I want it to be quiet. She's talking so loud, she needs to be quiet. But I don't know where the remote is, and I don't know if I can remember which buttons to press. I lean my head back and think about going back to sleep. But if I go back to sleep, at some point, I'll be woken up again. And then what? Once, I liked waking up in the morning, greeting the fresh world and whatever the day held. Now, after what happened, when my eyes open, I just wonder when I can shut them again. I don't have to feel hungry when I'm sleeping, and don't have to worry about finding something to eat. Thump. There's a thump on the porch steps. My eyes trace past the cluttered living room, past the TV, out the window, and as he moves, I catch a glimpse of him. There's a zombie climbing the porch steps, I start to stand. Sharp pain shoots through my stomach. I stiffen and pause. Is that pain new? I don't remember it from yesterday. I leverage with my arms, stiff and sore, and haul myself to my feet. I kick at one sock that's slowly coming off my foot and shuffle around the pile of laundry to get to the window. Surely I saw something else. Right? I'm sure I didn't see a zombie. The lady on the news is saying to be very, very careful. She's saying that the virus spreads not just from the bite, but that it's in the water supply too. She's impressing on us how dangerous it is because everyone knows that zombies are incapable of hurting other zombies. That's why it's spreading so fast. I reach the window and stop. My arms are limp at my sides, and I can feel the lopsided bun on my head slowly falling out. There's something damp on my sweatshirt. What did I spill on my sweatshirt? Outside the window, I see him. He's climbing the porch steps. He's lifting one foot, and he's looking down at it. Then he's dropping it, thump, onto the step. He's lifting the next foot. He's looking at it, then he's dropping it. Thump. I take a step back. He's an old man, a stranger I don't know, with stringy gray hair and mottled green skin. The brass buttons on his moldy wool coat still shine in the sunlight. Looking at them makes one half of my head ping with pain. His fingers are curled into claws. His face is gnarled into a wince, his teeth slimy and yellowed. I turn away. Thump. He's a step closer. I turn again. On the floor of the living room is a bath towel. Oh, that's why my shirt is wet. I took a shower this morning. I start to move, pushing my feet forward. One, then the next, then the other again. I reach for the doorway to the kitchen. Like, if I can find it with my fingers, I can draw myself through the doorway faster than my feet can move me. Why are my feet so slow? I kick the bath towel out of the way. It's still damp, like my sweatshirt. What do? I say, careful to keep my voice low. I'm somewhat surprised to hear my own slurred speech. Who am I talking to? What do? What was the plan? Was there a plan? My brain tried to slog through the past day to remember the plan. I remember my husband this morning. He was leaving the house to go to work, I think. He must have been, because he was wearing his jacket and was standing in the doorway. And I was sitting on the couch, heavy-armed and tired. And he'd told me. What had he told me? The same thing he told me every day. Do something for yourself today. Just one thing. I must have said something back, because he smiled at whatever it was. One specific thing. I reach the kitchen doorway. That's why I took the shower. I remember now. That was something for myself. Thump. The newest thump was so much louder than the others that I grasped the kitchen doorway to keep myself from falling. A needle of pain wriggled through my abdomen. Quiet, I hiss toward the front porch. The zombie had made it up the steps and is at the door. I can see his shadow through the window as he leans heavily on the door. Thump. He hammers again. Shh, I say desperately. He needs to be quiet. Doesn't he know he needs to be quiet? I start to draw myself around the kitchen island, one hand over the other, guiding my stiff body. It's not as bright in here, and I can see better. My eyes fumble over old takeout containers and empty water bottles, and the sink piled high with dishes. Piled so high with dishes. Before I went to the hospital, I would have never let it get this bad. The gloves I usually use to wash the dishes are 1,000 miles away, down on the floor by several pairs of socks. Thump, crack, creak, creak. I stop, my hands placed on the kitchen counter, holding me still. I know that creak. It is a sound that washes over me every evening and fills me with relief. Why? Why do I love that sound? Now, it's the sound of the door opening as the zombie walks into my house. The zombie is walking into my house. No, oh no, I whisper and look around the dim kitchen. Where's my phone? It's in the living room. Thump, thump. Footsteps in the living room, and I hear a ragged, rancid breath. Suddenly, my hands let go of the kitchen counter, and I'm moving, my feet carrying me, careening through the house, stumbling, unmoored, out into the hall and across and into the dark, dark bathroom. The door shuts behind me, and I blink once and again and again. Images of the spinning rooms spiraling in my vision before settling into the dark outline of the bathroom. Sink, toilet, empty toilet paper rolls, trash overflowing, and from down the hall, from the living room, I hear a voice. I can hear you in here. No one ever told me they talk. The zombie's voice drips under the bathroom door, snaking up my leg and draining into the pit of my stomach. His speech is slow and meticulous, his dead mouth trying to remember how to form words. You are breathing, the voice says. You are breathing so slow. Why are you breathing so slow? Why am I? I can't think. I can't make my brain think. All I can see when I close my eyes and remember is my husband standing in the doorway, looking at me. Why is he looking at me like that? Full of pity? Why is he speaking to me so slowly? Do one thing, he says, the words echoing in my sluggish mind. Do one specific thing. Just for you. I did. I did what he said. I look at the bathtub. I took a shower. A few water droplets are still dripping down from the shower head. I move forward, leaving the bathroom door. I hear heavy footsteps moving so slowly through the house behind me. I need to tell the zombie to walk quieter. He needs to be quiet. I hold out a hand, and I shiver as a cold water droplet splashes into my palm. I can barely see it in the dark, but my heart starts to sink, slowly, dropping from my chest down into my stomach, where slow, steady panic is building just under my ribcage. Why am I full of dread? Why does the water on my skin make me feel sick? Why can't I move fast enough to get to safety? My brain used to be smart and quick. Now it isn't. I'm never going to be quick again. I will find you. I jump as the voice sounds again. This time, closer. He's just across the hall in the kitchen. He's looking at the sink full of dirty dishes. I yank my hand out of the shower like it's a fire and start moving again, letting my feet stumble and rush. My hand fumbles on the doorknob and the door swings open, and I see a shadow cutting across the floor of the hall. I've lost a sock, and my feet stamp. 1, 2, 1, 2, down the hall. I pass a closed bedroom door on my way. Shh. I need to be quiet. Stop being so loud. Why are you running? The rasping voice grates through the house. I can feel you. You're tired. You want to sleep. I reach the basement stairs, and I stop. To my left, the back door of the house, leading out into the overgrown backyard, and the bright sunlight dappling on the grass and flowers. I think I can smell the fresh grass and perfume of the flowers, even from here. And to my right, the rickety basement stairs, leading down into moldy darkness. You don't want to escape. Where is there to escape to, anyway? My feet are stuck to the floor. I can't run. I look down at my hand, damp from the water from the shower, and I remember that I took that shower for me, and that when I was done, I sat on the toilet in my towel, shivering and shaking, and I didn't feel better, and my ears were ringing with screaming, and my head was aching, and my stomach was twisting, and I was tired. I told them at the hospital I was so tired, and they sent me home anyway. It's all I can think anymore, and no amount of warm showers make me feel better. Why not? I can't seem to feel better. I'm tired. I turn away from the back door, and my feet drop onto the basement steps. I hear him behind me. Thump, thump. He's following. My feet hit the basement steps. Thump, thump. He's following. I reach out raking my fingers along the concrete walls, balancing my stumbling legs and feet. Where are my feet? Where did I leave them? Oh, they're here, right underneath me. I reach the cold floor of the basement and step over a puddle at the base of the steps, and I pass the light switch on the wall. I can see from the pale light that shines in through the small windows, bins and boxes piled up where I left them, half open and spilling their contents on the floor. That was from before, when I cared about organization and neatness. Now, I can't even look at them. That's right, the croaking voice says. It's coming from the top of the stairs. It's grinding down the wood steps and splashing onto the concrete floor. Go down into your grave. Go down to drown alone. You do not want to walk back up again. My fingers trail along the dusty top of a box, then the edge of a bookshelf loaded with cans of beans and tomatoes and vegetables. My glazed eyes trail over the rows of cans, and I have to blink myself awake. I used to be different. I used to be awake. After what happened, whatever else there is, it's like I'm gone. I have to press a hand to my stomach, holding in my stitches and my guts even to walk. I miss the person I used to be. My feet shuffle along, 1 foot warm, 1 foot cold, 1 sock on, 1 sock off. I weave my way through the old bikes and laundry baskets to where the washer and dryer are crouching in the corner. I can hear his loud feet on the steps. One thing, one specific thing, just for me. I want to scream, to fill my lungs and holler as loud as I can, but instead it comes out as barely a whisper. Be quiet, I hiss. You need to be quiet. My hands rest, one on the washer, one on the dryer. I pause. I need to remember how to use my knees. I look down, and I remember, and bend, twisting at the waist, and bending my creaking knees all the way down until I'm on the floor. It's damp down here, water trickling in through the cinder blocks and oozing through the cracks in the floor. I place one hand on the cold floor, the water stinging my fingers with how cold it is. I reach behind me with the other hand. He's on his way down the steps. The steady thump, thump, thump echoing through the house. He's going faster because he knows. He knows why I came down here. Shh! Behind me, a dial on a metal safe clicks. Thump, thump, then splash. He reaches the puddle at the bottom of the stairs, and my eyes slowly look up. Up. He's tall and broad-shouldered, and I can see, in the dim light, the glint of his yellow teeth gnashing together. His eyes narrow when he sees me. Click, click, The dial behind me. There you are, he says. And he's moving, his hands bumping into dusty boxes and canned goods. I'm still crouching, and I can feel the water seeping into my sweatpants. I should be shivering, but I'm not. It feels almost warm. Warm, like blood, like my blood, pumping through me, swift and sure. Here you are, he says. The safe clicks open, and my hand closes over something familiar and solid. You're hiding down here to be found, he says, an ugly smile curling his gray lips. I'm holding the familiar object in my hand, and his eyes land on it. The smile widens, his teeth grinding together, spit dripping out of his mouth and onto his moldy coat. I raise a shaking hand. I pull in breath, and I let it out again. You can't do that, he says, his mouth fumbling over the words, spitting them out one at a time. He raises a crooked finger with a broken, bloody nail, pointing toward the ceiling and the floor above us. If you do that, you won't be quiet. Don't you want to be quiet? I do want to be quiet. I want to curl up down here in the warm water and sleep, where I can't feel hungry and my stomach and hips and back don't hurt, where my head doesn't ache. He must see my shoulders sag, because he takes a shuddering step forward. You came down here to die. No, I say, and my voice is louder than it should be. One specific thing, just for me. I can feel my hands again as they raise the gun I'd pulled from the safe and level it at the zombie. His old, dead eyes don't change or look alarmed. I'm here because I want to live. Bang, thump. Upstairs, in the bedroom I had skipped, suddenly startled awake, my newborn baby starts to cry. I look at the rows of canned goods, vegetables and beans and soup. I think it's time to cook some lunch, a decently modest proposal. Hey you, yes you, reading this story. Don't worry, this isn't some piece of meta-fiction. I'm dictating what I say to a gracious volunteer who will post it for me. I've got an offer for you. And no, not like a door-to-door salesman peddling dull kitchen knives or what have you. You see, my offer is as genuine as a baby's first laugh. My name is Donald Basemore Cooper. Quite a mouthful, I know. My friends call me Donnie, DB, Coop, Basement, and so on. Take your pick. They're like paint samples. But the people I do business with, oh, they call me a lifesaver. Believe it or not, old Donnie here knows a thing or two about you. I'd wager 9 out of 10 of the people reading this are sitting down. Maybe you're lucky, number 10 though, standing up at work, browsing your phone, blessed enough to have clicked this offer. Maybe your job doesn't let you sit down like a cashier or that guy who takes the stubs off movie tickets. Regardless, whether you're sitting or standing, you'll realize that your feet probably hurt. Maybe a little, maybe a lot. Maybe sitting down is just a temporary oasis from the desert of swollen soles and pained pinky toes. But we've all been there. We all know what it's like to have our dogs barking. Think about it. From the moment you were born, your mommy or your daddy had a countdown going for the day you'd take your first steps. Maybe they even filmed it, a joyous occasion to look back on. But was it really? Because after that, you might have found walking fun for a year or two. Then you might have graduated to running, sweating off the sugar highs you'd get from your candies and such. But at some point, I'm confident walking and running just became, vanilla, plain and simple, boring even. Hell, I'm taking it one proverbial step further and guessing it's just plain tiring too. Now, as an adult, say you can't find a parking space close to where you need to go. Now you gotta walk. Or maybe the bus station isn't that close to where you work. We haven't exactly designed cities around those of us without cars. Maybe your job keeps you on your toes. Go run this. Go clean this. Go serve that table of assholes their food, knowing they won't tip you. More walking, and even if you try and relax on a weekend, guess what? How long can you last until you go shopping at a store, or even a mega shopping center, floor after floor, dedicated to glorious capitalism, a shrine to enjoyment and consumerism? But your feet will have hell to pay. And I know I can hear some of you thinking to yourselves, but Donnie, I like to walk, run, and jog. Hell, I eat marathons for breakfast. I hear you. I promise you still gotta listen to my offer. You see, why do we do those things? If you ask me, it boils down to 3 different reasons. First reason, maybe you like an early morning stroll through the woods because you gotta de-stress. It's calming, serene, reminds you of your mama's womb. I get that. But it can't be the only way you know how to de-stress. I'm sure your buddies, the bed and the couch, would like to chime in and remind you how relaxing they are. And if you still want to be in nature, watch a bird or two. Park benches are right there, singing a siren song to rest your feet. Second reason, weight loss. You want to be sexy. You want to look thin. You gotta shave those pounds off of you. But I'm sorry to say, it's really all a sham. Society made up these rules as to who counts as hot, who gets to be on the big screens and such. They want you to look thin because there's more money for them in looking thin. Exercise machines, designer clothes, beauty products, all that costs way more than a bag of chips and cookie dough, if you know what I'm saying. And then they have the gall to make food so tasty, yet so fattening, to keep this endless cycle going. You pay money to get thin, only to pay money to get fattened again. That's the secret to beauty. It's just money wearing a mask. Don't fall for it. Live how you want. Don't worry about running to get thin. Reason the third. Maybe you run for sport. You know, it happens. You could have had a lazy eye and couldn't hit or throw a ball right. But boy, howdy, you sure could run like hell in a straight line. Now, your pal Coop here wasn't much of an athlete. Most of my running came from evading the school bullies, who are now, hopefully, adult has-beens and burnouts. But that spirit of competition is a wonderful thing. It's food for the heart and soul. But it won't last. Sooner or later, your body gives out, and you'll just be yearning for the glory days, like a college alum still visiting their frat house on homecoming. You can't run forever, so you see where I'm coming from now? Almost everyone reading this declaration of mine is going to tragically fall victim to one day being so pained, so hurt, so egregiously tired, all from walking. Biologically speaking, we aren't even designed to be standing up straight for so long. Our spines are an affront to God, if anything. So, what do we do? What is Mr. Basemore Cooper here leading up to? What is my offer to you, my dear reader? Well, let me tell you a story. Growing up, my grandfather, or my Boompa, as I called him, lived on his own. He'd come visit me, walking up the 3 stone steps to my house, back and knee pains the whole time. Of course, I didn't know at the time how much he hurt. He was just Boompa to me, so friendly, so kind, bringing over an apple or 2 to help keep the doctor away for me, you know? As a kid, I'd run around the house or the yard, trying to play with Boompa, never realizing how he struggled to catch up. Then, inside, I'd jump on his lap as he sought relief on our couch. He's the one who taught me my dogs are barking instead of saying my feet hurt. Hell, he'd put a spin on it with the whole pound is a barking Donnie, and then he'd leave to go home to his apartment, up several flights of stairs, all by himself. And I'd beg him to stay. Please, Boompa, I want to play every day. And I'd wonder why my parents were just letting him go off by himself. In retrospect, it's even worse. They had to have known his legs were hurting, but they basically kicked him out into the cold every time he finished visiting. Why couldn't Boompa just live with us? Would it really have been that hard? Don't you get ahead of yourselves, dear readers. There isn't some skeleton in Boompa's closet. No sins of the grandfather. No wicked reason why baby Donald couldn't see him every day. The real reason? Independence. As long as he could walk, he insisted on taking care of himself, living on his own, and thus seeing me only a dozen times a year. Tragic, right? Your hearts must be breaking. Boo-hoo for Donnie? Nah, I should get that I was still lucky to even have Boompa. But you know who wasn't lucky? Boompa. Knees sore, feet aching. A lifetime of walking amounting to chronic pain. It really shouldn't be a surprise that he couldn't cross the street at a normal speed. So if you think about the number of stupid people combined with the number of impatient people in this country, it was really only a matter of time. Boompa couldn't possibly react fast enough to that car. Don't grab your tissues and start weeping. He lived. It's actually funny how tires crushing your bones, grinding your flesh, and spilling your blood across the pavement isn't enough to kill you sometimes. I wonder if Boompa found it funny too, lying there, waiting for the ambulance, dragging himself away from the mangled remains of his legs. Just a clean cut, the kind that would make a butcher blush with how precise it was. Just like that. No more legs and feet to hurt. Just like that. Boompa was at home. My home. To live with us. I could talk to him all day. My parents would take care of him, and he'd never have to walk again in his wheelchair. I couldn't be happier that he lived out the last few years of his life with us, fully provided for and loved. I'm sure he'd agree. I'll have to ask him when I go to heaven. And we could have had all that for longer if he had just gotten rid of his legs sooner. Don't you think? What I'm proposing is a free service, all done by me on the house, to give yourself the same kind of life Boompa had at the end. Fully taken care of, free from the stress of walking. You'll find new ways to relax, new games to play to pass the time. And losing weight? Well, a leg is a little under a fifth of your weight. So losing both? You're talking upwards of 50 pounds off, all at once. Way more efficient that exercise ever could be. Come on. Working out is hell. All the sweat and the pains and finding time to do it. I'm telling you, my offer is way better than that. You might be hesitant because you don't have a spare wheelchair lying around. No worries. Part of the service is that I'll help you procure one suited just to your needs. What about housing? Making sure you can still move around. Your boy Donnie is right here. We can rearrange your house to be a more wheelchair-friendly space. What's that? Your job? Going out in public? Right now, I'm working on pushing the government to pass legislature to increase disability pay. Most public places have to be wheelchair accessible already, but with an increase to monthly payments, you'll have more than enough free money to use on both living and entertainment. You'll see, It really won't be a big deal to use ride-sharing services once you have the money from selling your car. How is the procedure done? Well, there are too many hoops to jump through to doing this in a hospital. God forbid us red-blooded Americans exercising the freedom we've been promised. I'll gladly come to your house instead. Just give me your address, and we'll pick a time that works best for you. Maybe you want the kids out of the house. Maybe you've been looking for an excuse to get off of work on a Monday. Certainly won't be going back to that job after we're done. I've got my bag of tools with me here. We've got some chloroform here, a new set of rags, some ropes too. I find it decreases the squirming if you happen to wake up. You don't have to worry about carpet stains either. I'll throw down a tarp. We could even set you up in bed for maximum comfort as well. Then you've got your choice of tool. The chainsaw is a wonderful choice for those horror fanatics out there. Plus, the noise will drown out any screaming that might occur. Again, if you wake up. But maybe you want quick and painless, or at least as painless as possible. That's where the elegant Japanese katana comes in, fully capable of slicing through bone. Maybe you want to savor the moment you give into a lifetime of relaxation and sitting. Or maybe you find your jollies from a little bit of pain here and there. No judgment here. But I've still got my trusty hacksaw here, still good to go from the first time I did this procedure. Now the forums will tell you that a bone saw might cut better, but ignore that hogwash. With enough elbow grease and a can-do attitude, my hacksaw and I will easily get your legs on a one-way trip to Aruba. Never to bother you again. Don't you worry a hair on your pretty head. I know what I'm doing here. It's not my first rodeo. I've had plenty of satisfied customers in the past. It does take a little convincing, but if you met me in person, my pearly white smile would knock your socks off. Be warned, ladies, I'm quite the charmer. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up chit-chatting mid-procedure too. Why, yes, I'd love to take you out to dinner in your fine new wheelchair this Friday. I'll hold the door open for you and make sure you get home safe before I lift you and tuck you into bed. Nice and snug. Now, in full honesty, not everyone is fully on board with this procedure yet. But I really am doing people a huge favor here. The couple of times they hesitated to say yes didn't stop me from grabbing the old chloroform here. I remember this one gentleman, surely an upstanding and strong man, didn't hesitate to start crying and begging me to stop once he was tied down. Those tears reminded me a lot of myself when I used to cry when Boompa left. Oh, how things got better for me. And soon they'd get better for him too. In fact, this young gentleman typing this all out is my latest customer. You see, I'm not the best with computers, so we cut a deal. He could keep one of his legs if he helped me spread my word far and wide. So here we are. If only you could see him hobble, a little tear in his eye. There won't be any tears once he moves into his wheelchair, with my help, of course. I'm not a monster, after all. So folks, if you're interested in changing your life for the better, taking a stand against pain by sitting down permanently, then I'm your man. For Donald Basemore Cooper, call 555-NO-LEGS for me. You want to be free? Call your pal DB and make sure you hold on to those legs once they're off you. Because I've got a great home recipe to share with you in the kitchen. C-section. Scar. I can pack all of my belongings and my son's in under 30 minutes. I attribute part of this to my military kid upbringing. My parents liked to live the minimalist lifestyle. They'd only put a few decorations up here and there. And while I hated seeing bare walls on each house or apartment we lived in, I definitely see the appeal now. My son is homeschooled because it is easier to do that than explain to his teachers why we move so often. And before you ask, it's not because of the military. Granted, my son is only in first grade, so I'm finding the material relatively easy to teach. But I'm sure in a few years, it'll get hairy. My son, Carter, is always a good sport about leaving. He may not fully understand why at times, but he's too young for me to tell the whole story, and I don't want to burden him with that right now. This has been the longest we've stayed in one place. It's almost been 8 months now, which I've found is long enough for Carter to make friends, and I loved and hated that at the same time. Not at the thought of him making friends, but the inevitable conversation I'm going to have with him when the time comes to leave. He took the last move a little hard, and frankly, I did too. I moved us to the West Coast, a place I had always wanted to live since I was little, but never got the chance to. I wanted Carter to breathe in the saltiness of the seawater, put his feet in the sand, and build sandcastles. I wanted him to experience what it was like to just be a kid for once, and hopefully put down roots. And he got to do that, but only for a measly 4 weeks. Now, living in dreary Seattle, a place I never wanted to move because of its constant gloominess and downpouring rain, is the place we get to call home. Well, at least until she finds us again. And I hope, for Carter's sake, she won't. I supposed I should now tell you the story of why we are running. On the day that I turned 38, I realized how quickly my biological clock was ticking. I had 2 failed marriages at that point, and I was desperate to have my own child. I did a few rounds of IVF using a sperm donor, and when I received countless negative pregnancy tests, my hope dwindled, and so did my bank account. I felt hopeless until my sister volunteered to carry my child for me and be my surrogate. I was surprised to say in the least, considering we had a rocky relationship over the years and rarely saw eye to eye. But when she offered to be my surrogate, it was as though we had a clean slate. Though I'll admit at times that I was jealous that she could be pregnant while I couldn't. But I knew without her, I wouldn't be having a child. I was just thankful she was doing this for me. Her labor was horrendous. She pushed and pushed for hours and wanted nothing more than a natural home birth. The home birth was one she planned for as soon as she found out she was pregnant. Instead, she was taken to the hospital for an emergency C-section. I held her hand the entire time throughout the ride in the ambulance and to the surgery. I felt as though I had taken a breath for the first time when I heard his cry. When he was set in my arms instead of hers, I watched her joyous expression turn to envy. As she laid in the hospital bed, recovering, she stared at him in the bassinet before turning to me. "Can I name him?" My eyes flickered towards her, her mouth agape as she gave me a sweet smile. "Name him?" I asked, still in awe. Yeah, I had a whole list of names while I was pregnant, and now that I've seen him, I have the perfect name. She paused, waiting for my reaction. I raised my eyebrow, and she replied, "Elliot." Excitement was written all over her face as soon as she said it. While I didn't hate the name, I have always wanted to name my son Carter. There were no words to explain how grateful I was that she did this for me. But I couldn't just give up the name that I've been wanting to use for years. Carter Elliott Smith. Her face dimmed when I said this. "So you won't use Elliot as his first name?" I shook my head, and she plastered on a fake smile, one that I thought was real at the time. "I love it." When I left to go to the bathroom, I thought I heard her call him Elliot, but I didn't know if I was just being paranoid and hearing things, so I brushed it off. The first couple months were hard, way harder than I was expecting. He was colicky, barely sleeping, and therefore neither did I. My sister was more than helpful, and even started living in my guest room to help with those late-night feeds and anything else I needed. It was perfect, until I woke up one morning and they were gone. It took me almost a week to find them, and that was only because my mom managed to trap them at her house. My mom knew that she took him as her own when she called him Elliot. Now, looking back at it, I wish I never would have taken her up on her offer. Not that I don't love my son, but I don't love having to move every time she discovers where we live. I hoped she would move on by now, but she's reminded of Carter anytime she glances down at her C-section scar. I heard feet scuffle in the hallway, and my breath hitches every time I hear the sound of shoes close to our door. Not knowing whose they were, I walked over to the door and stood on my tiptoes. She's standing right in front of the door, as if she knows I'm standing behind it. She smiles that sinister smile of hers and says, "You can't run forever." Aunt Cass, if I felt anything for the man sitting across from me at the dinner table, it would have been an incredibly romantic evening. The restaurant was dimly lit. We'd each had 2 glasses of red wine. There was a string quartet playing a lovely tune at the center of the dining room. And Samuel looked handsome that night. Well, for him. His suit was a size too big, and he had gotten a weird haircut that week. But he'd never looked better. "Champagne?" he asked me. Dear God, I thought to myself. He did not put the ring in a champagne glass. 3 minutes later, our waiter set a champagne glass down in front of me with a sparkling diamond ring at the bottom of the glass. I squealed and smiled at Samuel. Yes, 1,000 times yes. I kissed him, because that's what you do when you accept a marriage proposal. I slipped the ring on my finger. I did not want to, and would not marry this man. But my squeal of enthusiasm was real. I was thrilled to be his fiancée at last. Chuck, a year ago, I received a different marriage proposal from a man who is Samuel's opposite in every way. Theodore is handsome, clever, ambitious, and can fill out a suit. We met at the magazine where I'd been working as an associate editor for 5 years. He started with us as a weekly humor columnist, and we began dating almost immediately. I was hesitant at first. I had avoided romantic entanglements ever since an incident during my junior year of college. Eventually, Theodore's small gestures won me over, saving the Times crossword for me and laying it on my desk every morning, surprising me with coffee from my favorite place in the village. Once I agreed to a first date, dinner at Bistro. I fell hard and fast. I had never been in love like that before. I couldn't wait to open my eyes and see him beside me every morning. And there was no moment of my life, exhilarating or devastating, that I didn't want to share with him. I did try to stop. I tried to keep things casual, suggesting that best friends with benefits could be an option for us. Theodore just laughed at me, his blue eyes sparkling. It was impossible. We were clearly meant to be more than friends. The inevitable was drawing closer and closer. When Theodore suggested dinner at Bistro on the 2nd anniversary of our first date, I started to panic. Aunt Cass's voice echoing in the back of my head. I tried everything I could to cancel our anniversary dinner. I blamed a family commitment, but it turned out that Theodore had gone to my parents to ask for their blessing. So that plan failed. I told Theodore I had a deadline at work, but the editorial staff was in the loop and had cleared my schedule for the weekend. The night of the Bistro dinner, we left straight from the office. Theodore went downstairs ahead of me to get a cab, and I looked frantically around my office for a reason to stay. "Do I have any messages?" I asked my assistant. Samuel shook his head, giving me a dopey grin. None. Check. The thing you need to understand is that I desperately wanted to marry Theodore. Everything about our relationship was amazing. The sex, the conversations, the unconditional emotional support. Everything. An engagement, however, was out of the question. When we got to Bistro, Theodore had reserved a quiet table in the corner. I observed all the small details, the music, the lighting, the flowers, and I suddenly felt dizzy, like I needed to sit down. Theodore pulled out the chair for me to sit. Yet another sweet and small romantic gesture that made me love him even more. I can't marry you, I exclaimed. I'd never seen a person's face crumple like that. He was 31 years old, and he looked like a distraught toddler. Theodore let go of the back of my chair and started to back away from the table silently. No, I said, seizing his hand. You have to let me explain why. That's when I told him about Aunt Cass. Chakak. It's really hard to explain, Aunt Cass. Our family was Italian, passionate, loud, and full of characters. An aunt who made racist comments after 3 glasses of wine. The cousin who would always end up passed out around a table. And Aunt Cass, who everyone said could predict the future. It supposedly started when she was a kid. Her mom asked her about having a play date with a friend, and 5-year-old Cass said she couldn't go because of Uncle Joey's funeral. Uncle Joey, healthy as a horse, collapsed and died of an aneurysm 2 days later. After that, her predictions were a regular occurrence. Sometimes, Aunt Cass delivered warnings, attempting to help family members avoid a negative consequence, like when she warned my oldest cousin, Mia, not to go to a school dance, or she'd risk a grave injury. Mia stayed home. The limo her friends rented was in a horrible accident, and 3 kids ended up in the hospital. Other times, Cass's predictions were more definitive, unavoidable, like when she told her cousin Freddie that he was about to be fired. He was furious, stormed away from the Sunday dinner table, called her a liar. Yet when his boss called him into her office 2 days later to give him the bad news, no one in our family, not even Freddie, was surprised. It was accepted family lore that Cass's predictions were accurate. For that reason, I did my best to avoid her. Occasionally, her predictions were positive, like when she told my sister Tori that she'd get into Juilliard. But for the most part, they were gloomy and eerie, words that would haunt you every moment until the prophecy was fulfilled. Aunt Cass tended to make her predictions in private conversations during our weekly Sunday dinners at Nona's house, so I stuck with my sisters during those evenings. I did my best to never be on my own and in Cass's eye line. Then one night, during my junior year of college, we were watching TV in Nona's den, and my little sister stole my dessert, just snatched up my chocolate chip cannoli with a wicked grin on her face. I whacked her in the arm and retreated to the kitchen to get a new one. It happened so fast. There Aunt Cass was, smiling at me as she brewed the coffee. And all of a sudden, she was speaking. "You'll have 3 men in your life," she said casually. I froze, one hand about to select a new dessert. Was this how it happened? Aunt Cass had cornered my sister Isabella last month to tell her that she'd never be a movie star, but Isabella hadn't mentioned such an informal tone. The first one will break your heart. The second man will become your fiancé, but will die before you can marry. The third will be your happily ever after, Aunt Cass continued. She handed me a napkin and a paper plate for my cannoli. Aunt Cass, I wasn't typically speechless. I had goosebumps on my arms and legs. She left the room, and I heard her start talking to my nonna about a doctor's appointment she was taking her to the next day. Aunt Cass had delivered her prediction, and now she was ready to return to small talk. I didn't tell anyone. I had a boyfriend at the time. We'd been dating for 3 years, and we talked about marriage and kids. 6 months after Aunt Cass's prediction, I caught him cheating with my best friend. It was upsetting, but I wasn't surprised. Chag. This was the story I told Theodore that night at Bistro. The look he gave me afterward was scornful. "Gia, you can't possibly believe that nonsense," he said. I was crushed. Theodore had never looked at me like that before, with something close to contempt. He didn't know what it felt like to be in my family and watch impossible things occur and know that disbelief did nothing. "I can't. I just love you too much to risk it," I exclaimed. My eyes filled with tears. I did love him. I loved Theodore with a strength of feeling I'd never experienced before. The second man will become your fiancé, but will die before you can marry. If he died, I would want to die as well. The thought of losing him was too much to bear. He stood there, absorbing the information, and I could see a shift in his expression. I was becoming a different person in his eyes. A kook, a nut job, someone not serious or stable enough to love and marry. It was infuriating that Aunt Cass had done this to me. I was 29 years old, and her prophecy had been haunting me for a decade. I avoided intimacy. I resigned myself to a lonely life. I was scared of never finding someone to love, and equally afraid that when I did, they would die, and it would somehow be my fault. Enough. A small voice inside my head pushed Aunt Cass out, and I felt calm and resolute for the first time in weeks. "It's really nothing," I said, striving to make my voice sound conversational. "It's just a hard thing to shake, and I've been..." I paused, sensing it would give my next words more impact. "I've been lied to my entire life." It was as if a light that had flickered out reignited in Theodore's eyes. He looked at me hopefully. "Give me a little time," I said to him. "I just need to work it all out. Someday, maybe, I'd be able to give him a different answer." Our co-workers were shocked when I started dating my assistant, Samuel, a week later. He had always had a crush on me. He was young, impressionable, sweet, dopey. It was refreshing to be with him. Everything with Theodore had been so intense, and my relationship with Samuel was easy. We had to transfer him, of course, for HR purposes, and he ended up as the assistant to the editor in the office next door to Theodore. It was challenging, watching Theodore from afar for all those months. I watched him, watching me and Samuel, and I wished I could whisper what I was really thinking into his ear. It was simple to encourage a quick engagement and wedding. From the beginning, I told Samuel that I wanted to wait until after marriage for us to have sex, and he obliged. I blamed my Italian Catholic upbringing, and he was supportive. The abstinence was part of my plan to keep us moving forward. Nothing encourages a man to speed up a wedding date like a vow of chastity. After I accepted Samuel's proposal, after we told our families and started making plans for a wedding, after we set a date that was just 6 months away, I waited. It was agony. Theodore started to date. I couldn't invest in wedding planning with any enthusiasm when I knew the event wouldn't actually occur. My mother adored Samuel, who was happy to help with choices and errands, and they planned happily together while I pretended to be busy at work. I was at the office late one night when Theodore caught me by the hand as I was leaving. "What are you doing?" he asked me. "I thought you just needed time." I walked away. He would understand soon enough. 3 weeks before the wedding, I started to panic. 3 days before the wedding, Samuel took me to dinner at the restaurant where he'd proposed. It was the last time we'd see each other alone before the wedding. He had a bachelor party the next evening, and I had a bachelorette, and then we'd have the rehearsal dinner. It was so sweet that he'd thought, just as Theodore had, to bring me back to a restaurant where we'd had a beautiful memory. It seemed I was destined to have boyfriends who excelled at romance. I didn't feel romanced. I was terrified. I was waking up screaming at night, and I felt tremors in my hands and feet periodically throughout the day. I couldn't eat. I knew what true love was. I'd had it with Theodore. A marriage with Samuel would be devastating for me after the years I'd spent as Theodore's lover. And if the wedding actually happened, well, my parents would throw a wild fit if I even mentioned the word divorce to them. I needed to end it. We took a walk through the park after dinner, and then we went up to the roof deck at the top of my apartment building. It was a cool evening. I walked over to the edge of the roof to stand at the railing. The building was 20 stories tall. I felt Samuel wrap his arms around me, rubbing my bare arms to keep me warm. "Do you want my jacket?" he asked. "No," I said. Then I seized his arm and swung him forward. I watched him fall 20 stories to the street. Chetara. It occurred to me during the memorial service that everyone in attendance would have been at our wedding. The death was ruled an accident by the authorities. No one had seen Samuel fall. After years of feeling like I lived beneath an unlucky star, things were working out in my favor. Aunt Cass hugged me tightly at the funeral. "I'm so sorry, baby girl," she said, crying and whispering so that only I could hear. "I hate when I'm right about these things." I hugged her back and wished that I could thank her for saving me from a worser fate. There was no way to know if I could trust her, though. The plan wasn't always supposed to be this. For weeks, I'd waited for some accidental calamity to befall Samuel. I would have grieved it. He was only 28 years old. But I wouldn't have had to resort to what I did. It simply wasn't fair, the way Aunt Cass's predictions ruined lives, ended lives. Jack, after everything was over, the funeral, the memorial service, I called Theodore and asked him to dinner. His voice sounded perplexed. "I've been thinking about you," he said. "I'm so sorry about what happened." It had been about a year since I'd rejected his proposal. "It was terrible," I said quietly. He was so young. Theodore was silent for a few moments. I wished that he was in the room with me, that I could look at his face and guess what he was thinking. "And you're calling to ask me to dinner?" he asked slowly. "Things are different now," I said. "Bistro, 7 p.m. There was another beat of silence. "I'll pick you up at 6:30 p.m., he said. We hung up, and I frowned. He didn't sound excited. But then, I'd broken his heart a year ago, and it might take time for things to mend. Chedchalo. When I opened the door at 6:30 p.m., 2 uniformed police officers were waiting to patiently explain to me about the footage that had been found on a neighbor's security camera and the motive that had been revealed to them by the love of my life. I used my phone call to reach Theodore. "How could you do this?" I asked him. I didn't even recognize my own voice. It was high-pitched, wild, and frantic. "Who's going to be my happily ever after?" "I don't know," he said coldly. "Maybe the lady in the cell next door." He slammed down the phone. That was ludicrous, I thought to myself. Aunt Cass's prediction had clearly stated that there would be 3 men in my life. I held the phone to my ear, briefly after he hung up. I needed a moment to breathe. All I could think about was Aunt Cass, with her words that had haunted me for the past 10 years. The woman was insane. She ruined lives. The penultimate. It was a bit of a shock to see Sophie again at the door on a Thursday evening during the pre-news sitcoms, because by all accounts, she was quite dead. Peter Lander distinctly recalled kissing her passionately, bittersweetly even, because it was their last kiss, and he knew it even if she didn't, right before he blew her brains out with his Colt python. He knew he was right, because Eileen made a big fuss. Why the hell did you kiss her? She's my wife. Not anymore. True. And given the insides of her skull, confettied all over the living room. And that later that week, they put the rest of the package 6 feet under. And then a day after that, they collected on the staggering life insurance. Yes, Sophie was dead. She had to be. And yet, "Hello, Peter," said Sophie, standing at their door. Said Peter. Dirt dribbled from her dress and hair, and actually, she was covered in dirt. No makeup, but her hair was done up, and frankly, she looked like she might just have gotten back from a rainy rugby match, which she for some reason played in her funeral dress. And maybe she was a little paler than usual. Oh, and she had that gaping hole in her forehead, of course. Sophie rolled her eyes, pushed past him, and muttered something about, "Why don't I let myself in?" Peter followed her to the kitchen, where Eileen was making herself a vodka cranberry. "Oh my God," said Eileen. Her tone was shocked, but not the kind of shocked you get when you see a dead person walking around, but rather when you see the wrong dead person walking around, like when you're in line at the express checkout, but the old guy in front has more than 10 items, and it's noisy, and the AC doesn't work, and a greasy tween elbows you in the boob and doesn't even notice, much less apologize. "Peter, what the hell? She just showed up," he said with a shrug. "What do you want from me?" "Right," said Sophie. She placed a briefcase on the kitchen table, her lawyering briefcase from back when she was alive, and a lawyering, and unclasped it. "Gather round. Family meeting time." Peter and Eileen sat, though she huffed and crossed her arms and kept the vodka at hand. "Are you even part of our family anymore?" Eileen asked. Sophie glared her silent. Then she pulled out piles of papers, old yellow paper, covered in horrid red ink, all over the table. "Soph," Peter said. And then he winced. He never really knew how to broach deeper topics with her, which was maybe why their marriage was so-so. What's happened to you? Are you a ghost?" "She's obviously a zombie," Eileen snapped. "I told you to use the shotgun, but did you listen?" "No." Sophie drew herself up and sniffed. "I am not a ghost, Peter. Ghosts aren't real." Out of her briefcase, she pulled out, reverently, a ruby-red fountain pen. Except it wasn't merely ruby red, it was ruby, with a gold nib, and placed it gently beside her. "Neither am I anything so gauche as a zombie," Eileen pouted. "I am a revenant." Peter and Eileen shared a look. "What's a revenant?" he asked. "I'll put it this way. When I ran into the devil in hell—" "Told you lawyers went to hell?" Eileen said, sneering. Sophie cleared her throat. "When I ran into the devil, I made a deal with him. he'd let me come back as an undead murder machine so that I could wreak unholy vengeance on those who wronged me. You know, tear you limb from limb, eat your heart, and drag your sorry soul back down with me. Kind of one last big hurrah in the world of the living. Peter gulped. Eileen dropped her glass, which wobbled on the table and spilled all over her lap. Thing is, Sophie continued, holding up a parchment covered in bloody writing, I've gone over this contract hundreds of times, and as soon as I kill you, I go back too. But not until. She took a couple fresher-looking sheets of yellow paper and slid them across the table, one each for Peter and Eileen. So, I'm willing to offer you a deal. Feel free to read over that. But the gist is, I don't murder you. And in exchange, I get to live here and get access to the millions from my life insurance policy. Peter looked at his paper and gulped. Is this written in blood? It's Lucifer ink. By Lucifer ink, Sophie said. Then, with a distant look in her eyes and an unsubtle tremble, she added, Blood tends to boil down there. Oh, it is written on human leather, though. Peter and Eileen dropped their papers. What if we don't sign? Eileen asked. Then I murder you now and drag your soul down to hell. Can we just shoot you again? Peter asked. Technically, yes. But come on, Peter. Use your thinking brain. I'm already dead. Even if you managed to destroy my body by blowing it up or something, I'd just come right back, like some cheesy slasher flick. And the neighbors would probably complain about the noise. Oh, Peter and Eileen held quiet counsel for just a moment, wiggling their eyebrows and making meaningful expressions at each other. Of course, since Sophie knew them both intimately, one as a husband and the other also as a mistress, their secret language was no secret to her. She lay her ruby pen before them. What kind of pen is that? Asked Eileen. A pen par excellence. The pen ultimate. The devil's very own quill. Utterly binding on a soul level. I might have swiped it from his desk. What? Don't look at me like that. It's not like I can possibly get into even more trouble. What choice did they have? They signed. Then, for a second, they shimmered in a red glow and experienced a pang of bowel distress. And it was done. And Sophie moved back into the house she paid for. Her old firm wouldn't take her back when she called. No offense, Soph. And I mean that. You were one of the best, for sure. It's just, people already see us as ghoulish. And if we brought you back, well, it'd no longer be libel, would it? So she plopped herself down on the living room couch, right in the middle, so Peter and Eileen couldn't cuddle up on it while watching a nice rom-com or something. Not that they watched rom-coms, because Sophie had control of the remote, and she binged trashy reality TV 24 hours a day. Maybe someone else would want to watch something, Eileen said. Maybe someone else should get a job and buy the TV, Sophie snapped. And 24 hours a day really was 24 hours a day. since Sophie didn't sleep. "You mind turning that down at night?" Peter asked, after he caught himself humming a reality theme song in the shower. "It's just, I can't sleep." "Yes, Peter," said Sophie. "I do mind." And then she cranked the volume up. The only thing that competed with the blaring TV was the shrill ding of the doorbell, going off like clockwork. Also, at all hours of the day. Having some free time, for perhaps the first time in her life, Sophie crawled the online shopping sites and splurged on whatever caught her eye. After all, her life insurance money was as much hers as anyone else's. And given this was her retirement, she had nothing to save for. The lack of responsibility felt liberating. The living room was soon filled with unread books, unworn clothes, unwatched movies, unexercised workout machines, and uneaten chocolate. Somewhere, she even found a life-size alabaster unicorn, whose horn scratched up the low ceiling. And because she refused to budge from the couch, muttering something about the sentimental value of it being the place her brain was ejected, it fell to Peter and Eileen to get the deliveries. It was exhausting in their spare moments. Peter and Eileen mostly stuck to the kitchen, where the blaring TV was at least a little muted. Having company over was difficult, because all their friends understandably kept bringing up the Sophie situation. And frankly, it was getting embarrassing explaining themselves over and over, and stressing that the living room was Sophie's room, and so it was best to leave it be. Eileen hit the bottle increasingly hard, and Peter took up smoking again. Easy, since Sophie no longer nagged him about it. "This isn't working for me," Eileen said one night. Peter nodded. "This isn't how I pictured our early retirement." Peter nodded again. "Are you listening to me?" "Christ, yes. What do you want from me?" "I want the life of luxury I was promised. I want to be able to host our friends with swanky parties." She pouted. "I want my yacht." Peter rolled his eyes. "Don't you dare," he sighed and massaged the bridge of his nose. "It's not ideal, is it? What can we do? I thought we were rid of her. Be nice." "No," said Eileen. "I'm sick of this. I wish we never signed that stupid contract." "Well, she would have murdered us. And, you know, the whole hell thing. Whatever." Then Eileen's eyes lit up. "Hey, maybe there's a loophole. Where's the contract?" Stealing Sophie's briefcase wasn't too hard, what with the TV blaring, and her attention focused entirely on the very real antics of the very real people on display. They brought it back to the kitchen for some privacy and started going through the papers. Sophie's contract with the devil was huge. It took them a solid week to go through it. A week made all the harder by the constant interruptions from deliveries. But finally, on Friday, they hit on something. Footnote 28397, Peter read. Note that the Revenant has license to seek revenge on exactly one former aggressor. As soon as such an aggressor is slain, the revenant contract is concluded, and both souls become the property of Lucifer Inc. Note that collateral damage is permitted. What's that mean? Eileen asked. I'm reading. Hold on. Basically, if she blows us up or something, that's fine too. The contract's done when one of us dies, but there's no penalty, I guess, if we're both dead. Super. So very encouraging. Shh. Wait. There's more. Peter adjusted his glasses and took a drag on his cigarette. Note also that the contract will be concluded if any of the aggressors should die by any means, whether caused by the revenant or not. This includes, but is not limited to, traffic accidents, war, acts of God, peanut butter, old age, or being murdered by someone else. Said Eileen, setting her drink down. Said Peter. What do you suppose that means? I guess, Eileen hedged, if one of us were to die, then... Peter set his cigarette down on the table. He locked eyes with Eileen, and neither blinked, as an ad for an energy drink roared in the background. At once, she flew at the counter, and he dived for the pantry. And they both kicked over their kitchen table. Eileen grabbed the first things available to her, a cutting board covered in raw, soon-to-be schnitzels, and a gory meat tenderizer. She flung the floppy meat patties across the room and roared, hoisting her tenderizer into the air. And then, with a shriek, brought her cutting board up, just in time to block the worst of a volley of canned pinto beans. Peter charged her with a battle cry, holding a jumbo can of tomato juice with both hands. He leapt at her, right as she swung. Her tenderizer savaged his temple, but he tackled her. I think we should see other people, he roared, bringing his can of tomato juice down and down again. Eileen screamed, desperately blocking with her cutting board and flailing her face tenderizer, until it finally connected with his jaw. It was enough for her to push him off and then roll on top. And now Peter was on the defensive. It's not you, it's me, she cried. And each time her weapon came down, torrents of blood, or tomato, it was hard to tell, splattered everything. They rolled again when Peter was able to get a hold of a raw schnitzel and shove it into her face. And then again, when she managed to can opener his ear. And on it went, until they both flopped onto the kitchen floor, gasping for breath, covered in cuts and bruises and meat. Truce, he wheezed. Yeah, she managed, and then coughed. I thought killing was supposed to get easier after the first one. Hey, do you smell that? Eileen sniffed. Is something burning? Laboriously, they both sat up and found their kitchen to be on fire. The worst of the blaze was their table, which had been covered in Sophie's dry old contracts, Eileen's liquor, and Peter's lit cigarette. Oh, hell, he muttered as the flames drew closer. Then they both screamed for help. Sophie ignored them at first, because their drama was just too much. and nowhere near as interesting as TV. But it grated on her enough that she finally rose off the couch. By then, the kitchen was a conflagration, with nary any raw meat in sight. Neither schnitzel nor Peter and Eileen. "Damn it," she said, planting her hands on her hips. "You two are just the worst." And then she exploded into a cloud of sulfur and flame, and the house burned down. "Nature's the bomb." Landon's phone pinged again, disturbing the peaceful mountain hiking path. Woodrow Alfredson's right eye twitched from the tension building up in his body. It grew like static electricity in the air. "Will you turn that damn thing off? This is a relaxing father-son hike. It's hard to enjoy the beauty of nature with your mobile beeping like a bomb. Shh, this is important. Tensions are escalating and he acted without thinking. He'd been absent for most of Landon's upbringing, gone in the mornings and evenings. He was missing most weekends, and even when he was present, he was tense and exhausted. But what kind of a father would he be if he allowed his teenage kid to silence him with a shh? It was never too late to start acting like a dad. Woodrow grabbed his son's phone, hateful device, and hurled it down the mountainside. The black rectangle clattered and crashed and banged along the rocks. Its screen shattered. Bits of computer chips and internal wiring flew away as it spiraled to its death. "Dad, what? Enough!" Landon recoiled, eyes wide. He stepped backwards and tripped over a stone. He landed on his backside with a winded grunt. Woodrow inhaled through his clenched teeth. He wanted what was best for his son, and that involved working long hours to ensure that Landon never wanted for anything. But now, with the military contract signed and sealed, money was no longer a problem. Woodrow could now spend some quality time with his boy. The problem was that he'd left it a bit late, and Landon no longer cared whether his dad did anything with him. So Woodrow needed to find a way to crack through Landon's "I don't give a damn" veneer. No more. This is you and me time. I know I haven't been around much, son, but you should know I only ever did it all for you. I worked such long hours to give you everything you needed, to bring us to this point where we can enjoy this moment, right here, right now, on top of the world, looking down upon the beauty of nature. We never have to worry about anything ever again. I'm finished with work, forever. So now let's enjoy it, okay? I've waited so long for this time, so let's finally enjoy it. Landon's shoulders drooped. The tension bled from his body. He nodded and raised his hands. He'd scraped some of the skin off his palms when he'd fallen, and tiny droplets of blood beaded there. Yeah, okay, Dad, okay. Woodrow offered his boy his hand and dusted him off once he was back upright. Good lad. I'll buy you a new one when we get back down. God knows we can afford it now. Hell, I can buy you 10 of them. Now, come on. We're almost at the summit. Not much further now. The trees thinned the higher up they got. The going became more arduous, and the air became cleaner. The path took a turn and led them out to a plateau overlooking the lands. The mountain dropped away, affording them a stunning vista of their local geography. The nearby city, their home, sparkled like a teardrop. Woodrow was panting and sweating, his heart thudding like an out-of-control jackhammer. But Landon seemed none the worse for their little trek. The wonders of youth. He stood there with his hands on his hips, sweat around his pits, and gestured at the gorgeous views. He tried to speak, but both exhaustion and wonder stunned him into silence. Dad, Landon shook his head, unable to finish his words. Wow, nature is... He groped for the correct phrase. Nature's the bomb, Woodrow grinned. But that grin didn't have the chance to last long. An air raid siren looped through the air, slicing it in half. Birds erupted from the trees in a flock that blotted out the sun. The sinusoidal screech of doom rose and fell, rose and fell, rose and fell. It reverberated in their brains, their bowels, their bones. His smile faded, and he grunted like a caveman. A flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, lit up the sky. A faltering heartbeat later, the thud came. It rumbled deep into their hearts. A gunshot to the head of humanity. Woodrow gasped and raised his hands to protect his eyes. He staggered backwards and crashed into his son, who was doing the same. Landon reached out and grabbed for his father, scrunching up his shirt in a fist. His pale face no longer revealed the man he was becoming. Instead, he'd regressed into the small boy he'd once been. Daddy, what is that? Woodrow could not speak. His tongue felt heavy and lifeless in his mouth. Shards of ice poured into his veins, and the hairs on his neck prickled. He had the vertiginous sense of falling with no end. All he could get out was, "Oh my God. Oh my God." The mushroom cloud rose on the nearby horizon. His stomach rolled over, drenched in acid. No wonder the military had rushed to sign the deal. They hadn't even lasted 12 hours after he jotted his John Hancock on the agreement. Woodrow lifted his thumb, and his insides shriveled when the cloud dwarfed it. The city beneath the mushroom cloud had vanished into rubble. An expanding ripple tore across the landscape from the point of detonation. Trees and buildings fell backwards as though they were props made of cardboard. The green earth exploded into radioactive dust. The landscape flattened. The blast sanded every feature and landmark away like an angle grinder. The soil rolled in a wave as though liquefied. Woodrow had wasted his son's childhood, working towards a comfortable future. But all that hard work had branched them off into a timeline where it came back to bite him on the behind. There was money in weapons manufacturing and war profiteering, and such investments would indeed pay off. But not, it seemed, in the direction one would hope. Well, there was no future now. Woodrow had not missed the irony. He threw up his hands. "Ah, for God's sake." The shockwave hit them, and all became a blinding white light, followed by darkness.